Good morning, everybody. Whoa. All right. Now I'm sure that got your attention. Good morning. Thanks for coming out. I'm George from Savant, and we're going to get started now. So, wanted to start with a little bit of background about Savant and then talk about why we're here and what we think we have to offer. And let's take, I think it's about a 30-minute presentation here, so appreciate everybody's time. And for those that haven't recognized the background here, this is just a random slide that from a Kurosawa movie, so that's just how we roll around here. So a little background of Savant. Savant is now 13 years into the control and automation business. It was founded by a guy named Bob Madonna. Bob Madonna is a great American success story. Started a company called Excel Switching in the telecom space back in the late 80s with a credit card and a hope and a prayer above an auto body shop on Cape Cod, of all places. And 10 years later had 700 employees. All 4 major carriers were using Bob's switches to do things like voicemail on landlines when that was exciting tech. And ended up going public and selling it to Lucent, which was AT&T, for almost $2 billion. And then Bob retired and walked into the AV shop that I was working at in Manhattan, where I was glad to sell him some speakers and then attach lighting and climate and shades and control and automation as a result. And really the gears got turning, and so Bob founded Savant and felt that he could do something better. And I'll never forget, I think it was 2003 or 2004, when Bob said to me, you know, George, 10 years from now, control and automation won't just be expensive stuff for rich guys like me. It's going to be a mass phenomenon in America. And 10 years later, Google bought Mass for $3 billion. You probably heard a week or so ago, Amazon bought Ring for $1 billion. And so that day has really come. And we started off in the B2B space doing basically programmed systems, but everything was based on the Mac. We were proprietary solutions providers. I think Apple has long since sunset that program. That's where we can take things like Mac Minis and run our host software on them and resell them as Savant products. And along the way, we've had a lot of innovation in this space, from audio and video to lighting and shades and other things in the smart home landscape, but mostly focused on the luxury residential market. And so now that era that Bob saw coming when he realized around the corner 10 years ago has come, we've retooled some things and have some stuff to offer. It was about almost 2 years ago now, Bob came back as CEO after a brief stint, starting a new company called RacePoint Energy and bringing on the former CEO of Barnes & Noble to take us to this consumer space. And last year when Bob came back, we had a lot of pent-up Bob energy that ended up manifesting in 5 feature releases in both software and hardware along the way. We found along the way a lot of lessons that we've learned, and one of them is that the control and automation space is really a hub and spoke model. It's an ecosystem, if you will, but that ecosystem is never exclusively made from one company. It's actually somewhat combinatorial, and it's comprised of things that others make and things that we make. And so we've learned along the way things that we feel like we can make in categories that we can do well, as good or better than anybody, in other areas where we feel like we need to partner. So for example, we don't make cable boxes or TVs, and those are areas where we partner. However, we have found that spaces like lighting and shades and climate and audio and video are all areas that we can innovate. And so that's where we tend to make our own things. And we've seen that same trend happening in the space. Generally speaking, a lot of folks are coming to the same conclusion. And so a lot of these companies that you've seen out in the market that have these point solutions are now coming out with broader ecosystems and other attachments, which is really the name of the game here. So what does that mean for you guys? And we've had a couple of fits and starts trying to get into other channels here at Savant, and going from just this B2B space in the high-end luxury to other markets and other channels. And so I think that specifically going from audio video in that channel, which is called Cedia, that's how the customer journey always would begin. Somebody would come in looking for music throughout their house, and then the integrator would attach lighting and other things, the same way I did to Bob 13 years ago. Well, in the consumer space, we found that that's not quite the same, and actually the real hook into the smart home, if you will, that lets you then attach things is more in the category of lighting and voice. Those are the two big categories that get people now excited about this category. So we have something now in the form of smart bulbs. It's our real first true DIY product. And so that's the idea here, is that we now have something we can offer you as an app-enabled accessory that can then turn into more attachments for you to sell to the customer. And so we'll get into that, but to start, we're talking about a few different bulb types. You know, your classic Edison style, you're talking about you know, your indoor floods, your outdoor floods, and LED strips. Okay, well, bulbs are very much a commodity, so what does Savant bring to the table to differentiate? Interface is probably the number one thing that we focus on, and I think we very much believe in the Jobs philosophy of you start with the interface and work your way backwards. And so True Image is what we call the lighting control interface that we have some really unique intellectual property around. And the idea here, as you can see from this shot, is you take a picture with your iOS device of the bulbs and the fixture. We then turn off the lights, snap another picture within milliseconds, and generate the service, which is the actual interface. The picture is the interface. You touch the bulb in the picture, it turns off. You touch it again, it turns on. You click and hold it, it'll dim, and it'll do a pixel reduction in the photo. Why does that matter? Because it really truly is the most intuitive form of lighting control out there. Historically, for the last 100 years, we've had switches, and that's fine. You, on the higher end, might have keypad buttons that have words engraved on buttons, but again, it's not how most people think. Ergonomically, you push a button, then you look to see which load it's connected to, whereas mentally, in the abstract, I already know exactly which load I'm trying to affect before I go to do that. So we feel like that's one of the differentiators that we bring to the table. And demographically speaking, we have a shared customer. It's one of the things that we felt made this very synergistic with the relationship with the Apple specialists, because over 85% of our users are iOS users. We have, you know, less than 15% of our users are Android users. And similarly, almost all of our users are Mac users in their home as well on the laptop and desktop side. So it's a good fit there, demographically speaking, in terms of our shared customer. And another screenshot of True Image. This is in the form of like an LED strip, and you can find that those LED strips can go anywhere. They can go on stairs, they can go on the, you know, above the stove and underneath the cabinets, etc. So they're a real easy way to attach things to somebody who's coming in and looking for some of this tech. The other piece of this, click, is something that makes it a little bit more fun. We have something that we call scenes, and that's where the users can define this happens at this time, and, you know, one-touch automation, especially in our pro space, where you can say tomorrow morning at sunrise, I want the lights to turn on at these intensities, music to turn on in these channels, at these volumes, in these rooms, shades to open, et cetera, et cetera. We also have something that we find to be just kind of fun, and there are these light shows and things that can that come kind of almost like presets that we put in the can. Right out of the box to make it a little bit more fun. But the novelty of color kind of wears off pretty quickly. And many of you, I'm assuming, sell some form of smart bulbs, et cetera, and you've probably found this to be the case in your own home and with your customers, that, okay, the kids like it, you change it to red and yada, 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 but at the end of the day, most of us aren't really, you know, trying to change the colors of the bulbs very often. But there's something much more important when it comes to automation. If you think about looking at everything through that lens of automation, there's something that we call human-centric lighting, and that is very much involved with circadian rhythms, and the science behind all of this and the psychology is that your human eyes don't want to see blue after the sun goes down. That's why you have night shift, for example, on your phones. Well, you know, do your lights at home do that when your iOS device does? It should. And that's an area where we can help. And so the whites palette and tuned to Kelvin and the way that the temperature of the lighting, it's very important to wellness, Mayo Clinic and others are standardizing this, especially in commercial applications and whatnot. So some of that tech is built in to the bulbs. But most importantly, we knew that it wasn't just about the bulbs. We're a control and automation company, and so the world doesn't need just another bulb or point solution. We feel like we have to package this and offer it along with something that in our world is think of it like a hub. Here we've put the hub in the form factor of a keypad, and this little keypad gateway gives you some hard buttons, which gives you the tactility and immediacy of instantly being gratified by pushing a button. The little LED light in there is going to tell you the state of the bulb. If the color of the bulb is green, then the little dot there will be green. But more importantly, it serves as a Savant host. And over the years, we've been able to take the software stack that we run on our Pro systems and with Moore's Law, get it down now to a single core Linux processor and stick it inside of one of these guys. And so you're going to have the same user experience as you do at the most high-end homes and things that we offer. And so that's important because it enables things like remote access. It enables third-party integrations in the form of voice control. So it'll give you Amazon Alexa integration and as well as Google Home, et cetera. And that is something that we feel becomes a little bit more compelling and gives people a true taste of what control and automation and what the Savant experience can be. This is going to be launched in May, and so we're going to be showing you some of this later today at the tech vendor fair, but we feel that this package is something that is a good thing to have on the shelves, give somebody something they can take home, but then what? And this is where the Touch 3 is a real important differentiator. How many of you today sell something in the form of bulbs? Okay, and how many of you have a smart bulb at home? So you've probably experienced what I experienced, which is that novelty kind of wears off when the primary interface for those bulbs is an app, but the primary interface for bulbs in general is a switch. And so as you know, you hit the switch, the party's over. You can't communicate anymore to that bulb, and then when you turn it back on, it goes back to all white or et cetera. And that, again, takes the novelty off. As an automation company, we're very passionate about the fact that automation always has to be better than its analog predecessor. Otherwise, it just becomes a toy. The example I use here all the time is the automatic sliding door of the grocery store. That's automation done perfectly. You know why? Because you don't think about it. It becomes invisible. You walk through it. Maybe if you walk fast like me, you might notice you got to slow down a tiny bit for it to open up. But generally speaking, it works well and it's better than opening the door. But if I had to stop and pull out my phone and unlock it and go to an app to open the door, I would never do it again. I would do it after that first time. The novelty would wear off and I'd go back to pushing the door open. Lighting is the exact same way. This is a high voltage product. And so it is something that we will make available through the DIY app where a customer can install this themselves. It's more of a prosumer product, but more importantly, it's more of a DIFM product. And again, it solves that problem truly because it replaces the switch in the wall. It's always getting power and it's communicating via Wi-Fi, and it has that host technology that the keypad gateway has built into it as well. So you can always communicate to it. If you go up to it and you hit the light switch at the bottom, the light will turn off like you would expect it to, but then I could be 1,000 miles away and still go in and turn the light on regardless of what state you touched the physical button and last left it in. So that is a huge piece. Plus it has that same true image technology built right into it, so you could see the fixtures that are in the room right on the touch panel interface itself, and expand into other things like scenes, et cetera, as you go. So that we feel is one of the key differentiators that would take us to another level of offering than maybe what's commercially available right now. So that's the DIY product offering. But what we really are here to talk to you about is then what? And the then what, I believe, is where the timing of this partnership is very important. Because there's this in-home services model that we've now found to be very much proven in the market. It's unbelievable how the trend is more and more DIFM, do it for me model. And this is a huge opportunity we feel for both of us, because let's say somebody comes in and the customer journey is that they buy the lighting keypad gateway and they like it and they want to go deeper with you. We have something which you see in the middle here. It's a tool that we've made available called Studio, and that's an iOS for iPad available tool, iPad only. And it basically allows you, this is a B2B product, this is not something we're making available to the consumer, and allows you to then go in and configure systems in the form of these attachments, whether it's the high voltage products that we talked about earlier for the customer who does not want to deal with that themselves, and lets you now configure things in the form of audio and video and things that have signal path and remote controls and music solutions that we offer as well. So the ability to then start to attach more things to the customer that gives them really this full whole home control and automation experience, and gives you another series of attachments, and with super high profit margins, by the way, is part of the strategy here. And so that tool that we call Studio is a cloud-based tool. Like I said, it runs on iPad. You can see here it's a very simple GUI. You can say, okay, I'm going, if you're doing an audio video deployment, you would say I'm going HDMI out of the Apple TV into HDMI 1 of the receiver, out to HDMI 1 input of the TV, and you hit generate the services, and off you go. So this is a very rinse and repeat thing that lets you get in and out of the home, but do it for the customer who doesn't really feel like doing it themselves. There is some built-in cloud management as well, so it'll let you see all the jobs that you've done and push software updates to them, so you don't have to maybe roll a truck if you want to give somebody the latest and greatest, and it has some diagnostic capabilities as well as part of the cloud suite of services. It also allows you to now, again, introduce new categories to the customer in the form of some of which is high voltage, the keypads, 2-button, 3-button, 4-button, 6-button, it's configurable. So in other words, that's really one SKU that you're looking at here, and you figure out which button configuration you want. So if it's a simple light switch that you're replacing and it's just a dimmer function that you want, you would just give the basic 2-button paddle configuration and off you go. Whereas if you're trying to do more, you can do things like assign those scenes to the hard buttons all the way up to the 6-button configuration. We also have in-wall touch panels that, again, Studio, these are low voltage, and these are things that are coming 5-inch, 8-inch, etc., that would let you put more interfaces throughout the home. And the interfaces we find are contextual. So, sometimes walking into a room that immediacy and tactility, like I said, is right there on the wall, is the best way to do it. Sometimes it's voice, sometimes it's the remote, sometimes it's the app. So this is yet another attachment, and again, any of these interfaces that have the touchscreens on them will have that true image technology built into there. And so again, you can start to see an ecosystem forming. Climate is another one. This is our new thermostat that we just announced earlier this year, and it's more than just a thermostat. This is something that is another interface throughout the home. So you can swipe, and all of a sudden you can get to all your scenes and do other things that normally you can't do from even the market leaders right now in the form of smart thermostats. So that's really, really key. And finally, the remote. I'm proud of this. This is one of the products I was the product manager for. We hired the former head of design of Apple, Robert Brenner, who was there for 10 years before he hired Johnny Ive to come and replace him so he could start his own company called Ammunition, which did all the Beats line of products, etc. And it was a real joy working with him to create what we felt was the most beautiful and simple and easy to use. But it's much more than a remote. Again, that's a theme that you're seeing with Savant, is some of these point solutions fall short because that's all they do. Whereas, this should always be just another interface for the home. Do I want to turn on my TV to change the temperature? No. But if I'm watching TV, which the average American, by the way, still does 5 hours a day in their 3.5 televisions in the average American home, I don't want to have to get up to go to the wall to change the temperature. In fact, I don't even want to have to, I'm already probably these days on my phone and watching TVs, but God forbid I have to leave the app I'm in to launch another app to do anything. And that true image technology that we talked about is again there. So it's not just a remote control, it is truly a whole home control and automation device and interface that lets you control your lights, your temperature, and anything else that's going on that you've made available through this ecosystem. And the final thing, and the pitch here is not that you all sign up to become pro dealers overnight, but it's nice to know that there's someplace to go. If things go well and you're doing well with the bulbs and you're doing well with Studio and you're starting to see some of your higher end clients asking for more, there is our Pro Series products. And we're not going to get into all the details here, but I can tell you that for these large jobs, the software configuration tool that we offer is now something that we call Blueprint. It runs on Mac Pros and or on Macs in general. And we also have our hosts go from these single core things all the way up to what we call the Savant Super Pro host, and you can have truly rack-mounted Mac Pros that are running with redundancy, in the rack, running these homes that have 40,000 square foot homes that have tens of thousands of services and subsystems that are going on underneath them. So the scalability, because it's the same user interface and software stack that's running on the single core host all the way up to these guys. And the categories are, audio. We make audio over IP products from source to speaker. We have, the media server that has the Spotify's and the Apple Musics, and goes into an IP audio switch that has the switch capabilities, amplification built in, all the way out to speakers that are PoE, AVB enabled speakers and sound bars, et cetera. And we acquired a company last year called Artisan that gives us all of these LCRs and sound bars on the audio side. On the video side, we have it from not just a remote, but truly 4K over IP, tens of thousands of dollars of product that takes Ultra HDR, switches it, and distributes it throughout your home through a managed 10 gig network, and which looks like this, by the way, 4K over IP, the least compressed 4K over IP solution on the market. Door entry services, we have door stations that would again communicate to those touch panels and endpoints, and the app itself, remote access, so you can see who's there, communicate with them bidirectionally. And lighting goes from bulbs and even these retrofit switches and dimmers to full end-to-end solution in the form of something that goes all the way back to the breaker level with energy products, energy management, centralized lighting control, things that go in line behind the dimmers and the sconces and the chandeliers, that then communicate to the endpoints, like we said. So, and all the way to the fixtures. We've partnered with USAI, which is the #1 fixture manufacturer in the country. Goes back to 1939. So it goes super deep. Shades, exposed roller solutions for these high-end homes. These are cash cows, by the way. Lighting and shades are the most profitable categories that you can possibly find. And energy solutions, like I told you, Bob stepped away briefly to become, to start another company called RacePoint Energy. So we actually offer energy solutions in the form of battery backups and solar cells, and that where actually in that model you can just get a spiff. You bring a customer to us, they'll do everything, all the design, all the compliance, pulling all the codes and doing all the paperwork, and you get a nice big commission check at the end of it. So that one is yet another opportunity for someplace to go. So that's the kind of soup to nuts in terms of the categories. I'll for a minute, I'd like to actually pick on my friend Everett Katzen, who was a thought leader here. A few years ago, we started down this journey. I felt some of the synergy and reached out, and I think prematurely came into the market, and somebody has the scar tissue here to prove it, and I actually thought better than me telling that story, it would be great for Everett to come on up. So Everett, if you have a minute, please come on up. Thank you so much, everybody. Check.
So while you were talking, I was writing down things I wanted to make sure I didn't miss. I'm going to go fast. I got a couple. So first of all, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So these are in no particular order, but I wrote this down. And I have a presentation. Ooh, this is like an advertisement. At 4:30 today, I'm doing a presentation on home automation. So if you guys are interested in making a change in your business that would be in a home automation direction, then make sure you don't miss that. And I have a commitment to not be boring. Okay, so first and foremost, these guys are great partners. So it's like fantasy partner, answers your phone calls, great margin, totally interested in helping you. You want to do something in your showroom? Great. You have a funny problem? Great. No problem at all. They're all over being helpful. It's amazing. Who here in the room sells Sonos? Let me see, quicker. Okay, everyone. Great. Okay. So for your customer that comes in and complains that they have run out of rooms to put Sonos in, but wishes they could buy more, that's a leading indicator that they need Savant next, because that same fun feeling of bringing it all together is 100 times more powerful when you can do everything in the home. All right, the next thing is we figured out the hard way that if you do audio, or if you do TVs even, then you come in at the end of a project or into a house that's already built. If you talk to a customer about lighting or lighting control, then you come in at the beginning of the project and you end up getting everything. Because by the end of the project, they're out of money, they're pissed off, they want to move into their house, they're done renovating, they're done spending money. But if you can talk to a customer about lighting, then it's a game changer. Savant Studio is great. It's a brand new beta that you guys are starting where I was so who saw these guys a couple of years ago, thought it was cool, but was intimidated? Okay, great, it's a lot of people. Me too, okay? And I didn't have the ability to hire a programmer, and I'm not a programmer, so I was like, I can't do this. So this Savant Studio is gonna change that in that with an iPad, your regular on-site basic technician, or you, can do the setup without a problem at all. And by the way, I know how to use the software now, and I'll tell you, it's really, really straightforward. That thing, the intimidating slide with all the lines on it, is really easy. And are you gonna have something running Blueprint at the vendor fair?
I could bring my laptop, sure.
My laptop. Anyway, I could show you in 5 minutes how to put a system together that will not intimidate you. Oh, and my last point is, this is just based on my experience, and I can't tell you guys how to run your business, and I don't want to steal too much thunder from my presentation this afternoon, but like 10 years ago, the things that were really good about Springboard Media were we helped people, we solved problems for people, we took this expensive, complicated hardware they were using and made it simple for them. And everything that was good about my business in the last 10 years has changed as the stuff we sell is in a bin at Costco sold for our wholesale cost. So if you like helping people, if you like engaging with your customers, if you want to feel important ongoing in your customers' lives, does that resonate with anyone here? Well, then you want to talk to this guy at the vendor fair, okay? Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So I think I went over and don't have a lot of time for questions, and I don't want to take any time away from anybody else. So like Everett said, please come see us at the vendor fair. We will be demonstrating everything from the bulb technology. We will have Studio there on an iPad that I could show you a demo of. I think it's a great idea. I'll bring my laptop and show you Blueprint as well. You mentioned Sonos. We do have Sonos integration. In fact, I think I'll have a Play One at our booth so you can see what that looks like. And again, attachment is the name of the game. So if somebody's coming in with asking for this, you can attach that and vice versa. So thank you so much again for the time, and we'll see you at the fair tonight.